Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we were to go racing with B-Class all-wheel drive cars. Of course, some of these vehicles have got the driveline conversions, such as this Fiat Punto as we come down to turn 1 at the Nurburgring GP circuit. There was a little bit of bumping on the outside. A couple of cars got into trouble, as can often be the case. It is a relatively long straight, a blind crest, or a relatively blind crest, certainly if you're further back, and then a very, very big stop into a nasty, nasty hairpin. They're trying to go 3 wide up ahead with a Golf and something else. I think it was an Audi getting squeezed a little bit on the inside. All made it, though, through the next corners. Said Golf was chasing down a Ferrari Testarossa and a Porsche Cayman. The Porsche runs wide, coming up the uphill, very fast uphill chicane. The Golf goes around the outside of 2 of them up that part, the Ferrari giving him space. That's a brave manoeuvre to be pulling off. That chicane is, in these kind of cars, almost-ish flat out. Some cars might be able to do it, some perhaps not quite so much. Going around the outside of 2 cars at the top of the hill is a scary manoeuvre, certainly, to be trying there. This Subaru, struggling a little bit with straight line speed, was coming under threat from a bar. The Fiat having a big dive at turn 1, getting it spot on. That's a great overtake down into that corner. It's actually quite difficult sometimes to get overtakes into the hairpin. While it is a big braking zone and so on, it's kind of such a narrows up quite quickly through the apex there. So a good manoeuvre from the Fiat, but it is then stuck on the outside for the next couple of corners. Can't quite get the move done. The Subaru keeps his footing. That's a bit of avoiding action on a Sierra that was a little bit slow over the corner. The Subaru gets tangled up with the Ford. That allows both of the Fiats to come past, and now they begin to have a fight with the Ford. The Subaru, quick through the corners, can catch up through these next little bits, but has nowhere to really go as the cars ahead are squabbling for position. In the end, the Subaru is the big loser out of all of that lot as the Fiats continue to pester the Ford. I had gone for a Renault Alpine in this one. Small and very, very light. It was a pretty damn good car to drive. I had about 230-ish horsepower in this, so plenty of acceleration as I started putting pressure on a Ferrari Testarossa. The downside of the Alpine, because of the way I'd built this car, I think I had standard tyres, I might have had street tyres, was struggling a little bit with some of the higher speed corners. However, down the straights it absolutely flew. Not very often you see a Renault Alpine breeze past a Ferrari Testarossa down the straight here at Nurburgring. The Ferrari has a big brake lock-up, manages to get it stopped though into the hairpin. I had to be a little bit careful because I know that the other cars were a little bit quicker than me, or could be a bit quicker than me, through the turns. This Fiat 131 was having a battle with an Alfa 155. All of the ones in the group at the back, actually, as you can see with cars in the background and so on, these guys stayed relatively close up ahead. The Punto was having a go at something else. They were, it was relatively a lot of cars. At the front it got a little bit more spread out, quite a bit quicker, but back here there was quite a lot of cars within sight and within overtaking range of one another. The Fiat had a go at the inside, couldn't quite do it, ran too close to the wall, was very slow off the corner. That brought the Subaru into contention. The SVX again, another car here having some good straight line speed, had it go at the inside, couldn't really do anything. The Alfa was struggling a little bit. He was coming under pressure from the Fiat through the next turn. I think the Alfa went quite defensive, so compromised his run off of the turn. The Fiat has a look to go to the inside. The Subaru has got huge amounts of speed. He does dive to the inside at the hairpin. In the end, the Fiat thinks better of it, has to back out. The Subaru, I think, maybe just tagged the Alfa ever so slightly. It's a big, big slide with that SVX. Loses a bit of momentum. The Fiat has a go at coming back at him, but Subaru, too much speed on the run up towards the chicane. You can see this is the group of cars. It was quite an impressive group of vehicles as they crest the hill there, and the Subaru begins chasing down and gets alongside the Alfa Romeo. It was equally quite good at the front. Second to third were close together, while the leader had absolutely buggered off. Second to third were going 3 wide down the start-finish straight on towards turn 1. The 205 struggling massively for straight line speed, but was very, very quick through the turns. Whereas the Volvo and the Golf were quicker down the straights, but couldn't compete with the Peugeot through the corners. So as they come through turn 2, the 205 is going around the outside of the Golf, almost makes it stick, can't quite jinx back to the inside. The Volvo is in a good position here. You can just watch the battle going on behind him. The 205 is throwing the car around, but can't quite do anything about that Golf, even though he gets a fantastic run off the next turn. It's just that little bit too far back. As the race progressed towards the back, the big group of cars did gradually spread out a little bit more. This Volvo catching up to the back of an Audi TT as they run down towards the hairpin. Now, I was thinking the Volvo was a little too far back to try and ignore the lagged out car. The Volvo had a big go up the inside of heaven. That's from a long way back. Does a very good job of getting the car stopped and making the position. That's a fantastic overtake to have come from that far back and got everything all under control. The big second to third battle quickly became a second to fifth battle as me and an Alfa Romeo TZ2 decided to join in. The Renault Alpine breezing past everything on a straight, but had a few issues through the turns. So the Alfa had got ahead of me. I quickly dispatched him down the next straight. Up ahead, the Volvo was still fighting with the Peugeot. They very nearly get in trouble. The Golf gets kind of boxed in. I try to get as good a run out of the turn as I can, but there's nowhere to go because there's so many cars ahead of us. The tiny classic race cars were trying to find a way past. There was a gap briefly on the inside that I try and get to. We're almost 4 wide coming out of the final turn, and then as we fire our way down towards turn 1, the Alpine comes into its own, breezing past the 205. It's up alongside the Golf and then the Volvo. I have a go at the inside. The brakes on the Alpine are very good. I push my luck too hard though. Overshoot the corner, running wide. I do get it stopped, but I'm stuck on the outside. Get the tiniest of knocks from the Volvo, puts me out onto the dirt. I'm not going to give up the position though to the 205 if I can help it, continuing to hug the inside. I get to the inside of the Volvo through the next turn as well, making the most of the good brakes in this Alpine. It does get stopped incredibly well. It's just I may have asked a little too much, but I immediately throw it all away by bumping into the wall at the front, and it was a Lancia Delta S4 that was to go on and take victory at a huge margin of victory. You saw the battle that was going on for second place. Not only that, this car was a damn sight faster than the rest of us. It was a very quick car. Surprised to see a Delta S4 do so well. You've got to do a hell of a lot of tuning work to make these things drivable. They are very bouncy, very wobbly from standard, so well done for getting one of these to handle as well as it did. It was, yeah, a mighty fast car and would take victory in round 1. Second and third was still fighting, while the 205 and Volvo had a little bit of a coming together. They dropped back. We were all still battling for the remaining podium positions. The Alfa got a great run out of the chicane. Problem was he didn't have the acceleration to deal with the Golf. Has to go to the outside of the final turn. The Golf defending as hard as he can. The Alfa's got so much grip. He's around the outside, and if he'd had the acceleration, could have done something about it. Just doesn't have the speed to compete with that Volkswagen. I was a little bit too far back. I was catching so fast towards the line. In the end, the Alfa would take the third place. Volkswagen in second. My Renault in fourth. It was a very fun race, that one. Our second race would head to the Limerock circuit, the alternate layout. There was a stooler on the grid. We have seen this with the four-wheel drive cars. I think we had in each race, I think we might have had a stooler of some sort. These cars just not quite getting off the line correctly, basically. It was a surprisingly easy thing to have happen. There was a very sideways Subaru in the background. I was running side by side, all with a Cortina. I tried to get up the inside of a Golf. The problem is I'm now stuck on the outside for the next turn, and I ask a little too much of the Renault. A wheel on the dirt. Managed to recover. It's very easy to have a big off when you head down there. And Alpine on the inside has a wheel on the dirt. He isn't going to get it stopped. Comes skating across the track in front of everyone. Amazingly, no harm was done. Well, except for his car going in the tyre bundle the other side. But yeah, he managed to clear the track without taking out any of us. I got myself to the inside, out dragging an Evo. There's just a cloud of smoke as a Golf gets himself in trouble, and somehow I managed to survive all of the opening lap. It was rather crazy, this one. In fact, it was very crazy. The opening lap here, this MX-5 Cup car found himself in the mid-pack. The Golf was incredibly fast in a straight line. It was breezing past just about everything. But in turn, you build a car like that, you're going to be compromised, and in a track like this, they tend to struggle through the corners. The MX-5 tried to be brave. Around the outside at turn 1 is a hard manoeuvre to pull off, and the MX-5 asked a little bit too much of the Cup car, and now he's about to come under pressure from the train of cars behind him. He's still having a look, trying to find a way past the Golf as an Evo gets himself into big trouble on the outside. The Golf has held his position against the Mazda. The Mazda, though, has a big dive up the inside, not quite spaced. They sort of bump and even themselves out with jumping across the chicanes. The Mazda's got the Subaru right behind him, and the 22B far quicker than the MX-5 in a straight line, breezes past before the next corner, and the Subaru promptly outbrakes himself, and he's off the track, and everyone can resume just about where they were the previous lap. I was once again making my way through the field. Me and the Opel were pretty much sticking together for this race as we carved our way up through the order. The Opel fantastic through the turns but had no straight line speed. The Alpine really struggled through these first couple of corners. This is where it's really noticeable that my Renault just did not get turned around here. It was really quite slow through these turns, but it had fantastic acceleration. We'd both had to go up the inside of the BMW and made the pass stick through those first couple of corners, but you can see the 2002 Turbo is coming right back at my Renault down this back section. Then we come to the Alpine's favourite part, this uphill chicane, because the car's got such good acceleration, and with these being B-class cars, some of them are fairly low powered, that hill can cause some big issues for some of the cars, and the Alpine absolutely flies up that hill. You can see the gap I made to the BMW just at that one section. I was then up to a Mazda RX-8 as the Cadet continued to make progress. Couldn't quite have a go at the final turn there. This midfield group remained relatively close for quite a while, led by a Quattro that was trying to fend off from a Golf. Then we got the Subaru 22B and an Aston Martin at the back of this lot. The Volkswagen continued to be impressively fast in a straight line. The Audi having to go on the defensive down towards turn 1. The Golf just about gets ahead before they ever even get to the braking zone, but the Audi so much better through the corners will well, it looks like a huge dive up the inside. It's perfectly fine for the Audi. It's got enough brakes and enough handling to deal with that. The Golf's then coming under threat from the Subaru as they go very close around that corner. Not quite the ideal line you want to be taking, a little too tight for the Golf. They get out of the turn, and now the Subaru has to be careful. And again, another heavy acceleration zone. The Volkswagen's going to pull up alongside. He's got a wheel on the grass and can't quite get the car stopped. And in the end, the Subaru would get the position, and now the Volkswagen, having been dumped down a position, has got to be aware of that Aston Martin. The Subaru continued to be impressively quick around here as we head to the final corner. That's a long way to go around the outside of a car. These two much more evenly matched in terms of straight line speed. The Subaru just the slight faster of the two. The Golf from miles back is up the inside, very nearly made it 3 wide into that first turn. Thought better of it in the end as the Subaru and Audi trade a little bit of paint around that opening corner. In the end, the 22B did a great job around the outside. As I said, it is a tough manoeuvre. It's not impossible. It is a tough manoeuvre, though, to get around the outside there. He made it stick, and the 22B was now released to try and chase down the rest of the field. At the front, it was a Porsche Macan that had led the way. He had a relatively comfortable lead until a mistake dropped him back into the clutches of the Cadet and my Alpine. The thing was, the Macan was very much like the Alpine, very fast in a straight line and struggled through the first sector. So we ended up having this no position changed with this group. The Cadet would catch up massively through the first couple of corners, and then the rest of the lap, the Macan would be quick, and then I would catch up to the back of the Cadet. And it just stayed like this. None of us could do anything about the other's car because of our various strengths and weaknesses and so on. It was quite good fun, but quite infuriating as I was racing down, tried to have a look at the inside, but I was never quite close enough. I could catch up a lot of time, but I was never close enough to really have a go, and then the Cadet would be immediately on the back of the Macan, but then he couldn't find a way past because we'd have left that first wheelie section. The BMW 2002 Turbo slowly, gradually dropped through the field, but he wasn't going down without a fight. The Golf makes relatively straightforward out-dragging manoeuvre down the start-finish straight. The BMW, with a wheel on the grass, is around the outside at turn 1. That's a damn tough manoeuvre to do, that one. Especially, normally you touch that grass on the outside, you're done for. BMW does a great job to get that pass, or to get that repass done. Another wheel on the grass there is not a good idea, but yeah, that's an impressive overtake. And as I said, at the front, it remained very much as it was. This is how it went for the last couple of laps. The Cadet tried and couldn't do anything, and the Macan would eventually out-drag it down the straight. I made a couple of silly mistakes around the final corner, mostly. I never really challenged the Cadet either. The Porsche, the big Porsche, taking a victory here, ahead of the Opel in second, with my Alpine in third. Final race would go to the Sebring Club Circuit, another staller, this time an Alfa 155 could not get his car off of the line, and it's a little bit of chaos caused going into turn one. Again, another nasty hairpin. A bunch of us got sort of caught up on the outside. Problem is, once one car kind of makes a mistake, it kind of affects the vehicles ahead of it, especially when there's a nasty puddle on the outside. Just a chain reaction. One car gets pushed, and then we all get pushed a little bit wide. Wasn't the best of starts, in all honesty, that is for sure, as there are cars slipping and sliding their way through the puddle of doom. This Volvo we were following thought about going around the outside of a Lancia Delta, couldn't quite make the manoeuvre stick through there though, and yeah, I think it's better have tried to force the point, especially in the rain. You've got to be careful. Yeah, these are all-wheel drive and so on, but that doesn't necessarily make them incredibly easy to drive in these conditions. It's still an incredibly wet circuit. This wasn't the greatest of races, really, that we're seeing quite a lot of mistakes were going on through the field. This Peugeot, though, goes for a brave manoeuvre. It looked for a minute as if they were going to go too wide through the puddle of doom. Peugeot just manages to get ahead in time, but is completely crossed up coming through that section. It is an absolutely horrendous puddle, and if you don't hit it at just the right angle, it'll spit cars out into the wall often. The 205 did a great job. Those 205s are notoriously twitchy, so he did a great job to keep that thing pointing in the right direction. The Toyota, though, is still right behind him, having a look through the next turn. It is so tantalizingly close, but just can't quite do anything about the other 205's handling. A Subaru 22B was making good progress through the field, gets to the inside of a Volvo on the final turn, but then we have the drag race down towards the first corner. The Volvo does start coming back a little bit at the Subaru down here. It's relatively even. Subaru does manage to just about get across in time. The Volvo, it covers the inside. The Volvo can't really do too much. The Volvo looking for a good run off the turn, but is too far back. The Subaru is already after what was, I believe, third place. The Mazda Cosmo with a wheel on the grass. That's not a curb you want to have an argument with. Not at all. The Subaru is having another very big slide, as is the Volvo, as is the Porsche behind, across the puddle of doom. Amazingly, they all managed to keep the cars pointing in the right direction. The 22B managing, he's got so much more grip than the Cosmo, can get his car cut back to the inside and would get past the Mazda before they get to the next turn. Yeah, there was many a side. I'd love to have a stationary camera at the puddle of doom, just watching the cars go past. There were many huge slides. Not very many cars actually fell off the road there, though. Lots of cars went very sideways, but people did a good job of keeping their cars vaguely under control. The most exciting stuff was going on with this battle for about fourth place now between the Cosmo and the Porsche and various other vehicles that kind of came up and then made a mistake and dropped back, and they all sort of fought over positions. The Porsche had fantastic initial acceleration, much like the Porsche that I had in the last versus community. Initial acceleration was great. He tried to make the most of it out of turn one, but got a wheel, he tried to go around the outside, got a wheel on the grass, and the wet grass is going to cause problems. Gets away with it better than you might expect for a very little lightweight Porsche. But yeah, immediately he's under threat once more from the Volvo. The Volvo, though, stuck on the outside line, isn't going to get it done there. Porsche, great initial acceleration, but actual top speed, it was being beaten by the cars around it, but that initial acceleration was very good. I had been involved, I'd been caught up really in some of the tangles further down. I dropped a long way through the order. I was picking my way up, mostly from just out dragging cars and cars from falling off the road. Did have a good little battle with a 205. The thing is, the Alpine was so fast in a straight line. In the end, all I had to do was stay close to him by the final turn. And then I'd out-drag him before we got down towards turn one. 205 was good through the turns and did defend for a little while, but just didn't really have an answer for the straight line speed of the Alpine, and I was good enough when it came to the corners that once I got ahead, I could stay ahead, even with the puddle of doom, being quite scary. That's probably the worst. The Alpine was actually really good through there. That's about probably the worst problems I had here. At the front, it was a Subaru SVX that would go on to take a victory. Started at the front, got to the lead early on, made no mistakes, and drove away from the field. The 22B was gradually catching towards the end of the race, but ran out of laps to really do anything about it. So yeah, the SVX would claim victory, 22B in second place. In the end, the Mazda Cosmo would end up in third place. Not the greatest of races we have had this one. A few cars, despite the things being all-wheel drive and so on, a lot of cars sliding off the road. So most of the overtakes were kind of from someone making a mistake and sliding miles off the track. Not the most spectacular race. I still had some quite good fun making my way up through the order. But yeah, the Puddle of Doom is always an interesting prospect when it comes to that track. Anyway, that is it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 17th of March. We are going to be doing a one-make race using C-Class Rally Fighters. Should be quite interesting, that one. If you would like to sign up and take part, then you can go to our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and you'll be able to sign up in there. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.